Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at thestartupfactory.tech.
And welcome to another episode of From the Factory Floor. It's your host, James Brookes again, and today I'm very kindly joined after another hiatus. You seem to keep avoiding it, Aleksa. Welcome back.
Thank you, James. Good to be back. It has been a while, yes.
It has. I can't remember when the last time. I think it was about mid-2021 that we managed to last get you on, because you're a busy man, aren't you?
That is true.
That is very true, what we've got going on. So, obviously, we've got you on today to talk about one of the side projects that we've been working on here at TSF, and I know that you put a lot of effort into, which is the Pragmatic CTO at work. So, I guess as a start for 10, what is the Pragmatic CTO? Who's it for?
So Pragmatic CTO is as you said, a bit of a side project we started at the Startup Factory. It's like a budding network. It's an aspiring community for technology enthusiasts and business leaders in Manchester and the north of England, with the goal of helping to develop the next generation of technology leaders locally. So that's our big goal. Some big words there. So hopefully we'll be successful.
I mean, it's a big goal to try and get, obviously, bringing people through from outside that junior level through to eventually being CTO is obviously a really big task. So where did that idea initially come from for you to actually want to start that journey for a lot of these people to become CTOs?
So as you know, James, you and me have worked with Startup Factory with a lot of founders and startups and brought a lot of them into life by building tech products and building teams. And some of them are quite successful companies nowadays. And as you know, we usually start the journey by me taking a role of interim or advisory CTO and help move the organization forward from that early inception stage. What I did notice that the hardest bit of that whole process is letting these companies go, in the sense that building that talent internally and leadership that can bring them to the next level. So we, as you probably know, have challenges in getting that job finished and stay for much longer than we initially thought. The biggest challenge in that was finding, recruiting, attracting, training, mentoring the next generation of tech leaders. And that's what I try to address with the Pragmatic CTO concept.
Yeah, because I mean, I know from obviously how we've dealt with our startups, with obviously the main challenge is usually recruitment, not just to the CTOs, but the teams in general. Obviously, your CTO, you really hope is, I guess, that guiding light for that team, that person who's going to lead them, develop them, train them. I mean, obviously with that, what are some of the other main challenges that tech leaders face in startup life?
I would say building tech teams is the number one challenge. That's the most critical job of early stage technology leaders, surrounding with people who can get the technology within the organization to the next level. We are talking usually about tech products, although nowadays every company is a tech company, as technology is at the core of a lot of businesses. But that's probably not the only one. I think on a more kind of personal level, for anyone stepping up in that kind of CTO, head of engineering role, balancing the part of the role that is inward looking, like building things, engineering, designing software, with outward looking, talking to investors, representing your company with stakeholders. It's always a bit of a challenge depending on what side of the spectrum of technologies you come from. And another maybe big challenge for me, and from what I can see with a lot of other people coming into that sort of CTO role, is the importance of quick decision making. Making decisions isn't easy, but if you are a CTO, you have to make a lot of decisions very quickly, and you just have to become comfortable with that some decisions may not be the best and they can change. But the important bit is you have to always move forward towards your goals.
So I guess that's really one of the things about Pragmatic CTO, is giving these people the confidence to know that they're making the right decisions at the time, and allowing those decisions. Like I say, we know better than most how fast things can move in the startup world, especially in technology. That the decision you make now might turn out to be the wrong decision in 6 months' time, but obviously if you're still making it now, that's still right
Yes,
decision.
and you said a very important word is confidence. It is all about confidence. I would never say that I know everything. Actually, I know nothing really. The more in this, I think I know even less. But I can still make those decisions. That it is about finding the right balance between confidence and moving things forward rather than just stagnating and procrastinating and waiting. And another thing you did mention is technology as a general rule is a fast-paced world. It always changes. I mean, even in my career, which hope maybe I'm midway through it now, but I've seen some big changes in the technology, starting from the advent of the internet, cloud computing, nowadays AI and machine learning. There's a big changes, and that's on a high level, let alone of smaller bits. Changing frameworks, languages, and what's in vogue, what isn't. I mean, but I would say that that's probably, although I think a challenge, it's the part of the role that a lot of techies like myself enjoy the most, so they don't find it that challenging.
And I suppose, it goes back to what we were saying before about the recruitment and finding the right people to then join you as a CTO and form that, whether it's the sort of senior engineers, head of engineering, or even the more junior level, having that ability and people around you to help make those decisions and then implement them so you can focus on that almost futurist and the more outward aspects of being a CTO, like say dealing with investors, which isn't something a lot of developers, especially if you haven't been in sort of an environment like we are, probably haven't been as confident. So what's the main things you look for, especially when you're building a team here at TSF? What's the main things you look for to enable you to do your role so well?
I think a lot of people listening to this to recognize that the market in the technology recruitment has been extremely challenging. I think demand is huge. You'll see that, as I said before, every business is a technology business nowadays. So there's a short supply of good engineering skills, which is why I do think that in order to build the best possible team, organically, team that will help you grow and the company grow and grow themselves, is probably not by just focusing on the skills and the specific languages or frameworks or whatever it is really. I would say the key aspect is that kind of mindset that you're looking for, someone who is willing to learn and grow both personally and professionally in terms of their responsibilities and everything else they do. I'm quite a big believer in mentoring people into the jobs. So that's what we try to do here in TSF. That's what we start to do in a lot of startups. Maybe one of the reasons you would say for that is that in a lot of startups, budgets are huge constraints. So you can't afford to hire the rockstar developers. So you want to start small, but with people who can grow. So recognizing that early by connection to universities or career changing kind of bootcamp programs and things like that can make a big difference.
No, so I know we've had a lot of success with our sort of the internship programs, and I know also we've hired some of our interns we've had previously. Equally, people like Austin, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, obviously with their career change into tech using North Coders. I think looking at those people with the real drive and determination gives you that inclination to their mindset, which then really helps them to develop further down the line to hopefully whether it's becoming senior engineers, becoming CTOs. Obviously, it really depends. And it's on those, I guess, how much do you look at the coding skills of the team around you versus their decision-making abilities? Because obviously that's something that when you're building a team, you've got so much to look at that you want to start having people develop in the right ways.
Yes, so I think we mentioned that mindset and that kind of desire to learn, but we also have to be ready to spend time and effort mentoring and supporting if you want to go down this strategy or to building a kind of young and growing team. I think technology skills are important in essence. That's what you're looking for them to do in a job. But I mean, similar to all the changes in technology from internet and cloud computing, I in my career went through a number of languages, frameworks, and I've realized that it's not important the syntax or the specifics. It's more of that engineering mindset, thinking like an engineer and doing the right things. Really, that is important. But I would just add one more thing, which is that one of the key aspects that we are looking for is also that kind of mechanical sympathy for software development. So software development is a very popular job. It is well paid. So what is important for me is to get people who really enjoy what they're doing. So they're not here because they probably could do something else or would want to do something else, but here by chance. Not that I don't mind that. I think what's important for me personally as well is that you enjoy what you're doing. So if you get someone who is into that for the right reasons, it's a big plus for you.
And I think especially once you go past those first couple of hires where you're really looking at the tech skills, and that's also how they then integrate into the team, which is something we've spoken about, and we always make sure that when we're looking at people to hire that they fit within the team you've got because you've nurtured them and brought them on. So the last thing you want to do is bring people in that are potentially going to upset the apple cart in a way that doesn't actually push the company forward. So also spoken a lot there about the recruitment, and we could probably do another 3 episodes just on tech recruitment with the amount of experience, both good and bad, that we've had in terms of trying to find teams. When you're looking at the more external facing role, which is somewhat a lot of people, especially at that head of engineering level, who won't have been involved at the board level, C level, externally in terms of fronting the technology team, what advice would you give to people in terms of actually stepping into that role, and how does that change for you as you move?
That is a very good question. I think that one of the big challenges in building a working relationship between core technologists or engineers and the business stakeholders and investors is that kind of barrier of technology, and specifically technology language. So I think one key piece of advice I would give to anyone aspiring to establish a good communication with their investors, stakeholders, CEOs, whatever they are really, is not to hide behind technology and technical terms and anything, any implementation detail. You know how it's, even if you do software engineering, you always are taught to think about big picture, the designs, building blocks, not the implementation detail, because implementation detail can change. Same in this aspect. Communicating clearly in simple terms about design, about the concepts, rather than implementation details, is the key to successful relationship. Also, when it comes to things like roadmaps, which is usually one of the key interests for anyone on the board level. What are we doing with technology? What is the budget for? Where are we ending? It's not about just explaining what we can do now, but also about where are we going 6, 12, 18 months at a time. But again, in simple terms, in terms of exciting people without giving too much information about details that are probably not important at this stage.
No, so I think that's one of the things we found, and obviously I've worked with some good CTOs in the past and some, that were more early stage. And I think how you manage to communicate quite complex ideas to people like myself, like Ian, who aren't necessarily developers or have that deep tech knowledge to be able to understand what the roadmap is, where this project could go, and also why things are happening in particular orders using the experience you've got. I think that's the most valuable thing that I've seen when we've dealt with investors and externally with how a CTO interacts with people. It's actually making things simple and knowing the right level to pitch it at as well, because you don't want to almost go too low a level in, almost, the dummy's guide versus actually this is how it impacts the business, and having that context. I think that's something you've managed to do really well.
And that is the thing that you're not bored with. You just, the things you learn through experience. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you're not quite right. But yeah, there is that sliding scale of how deep you want to go in technology. But it's a two-way process. The more you explain and get people on board, the more decisions you can make that will impact that technology going back to your technology team and impact some of the lower level stuff, be it technology choices or investment in new engineering skills and things like that.
So, between the external facing stuff, the recruitment, making tech decisions for the company, onboarding new developers, choosing technology stacks, looking at architectures, and everything else that you actually try and do in a day as a CTO, how do you actually balance that into a role and actually manage your day-to-day workload, because it's so varied?
It is very varied. That's what makes it interesting and challenging and exciting. And that's what I like about my job. And that's why I want to inspire others to join me on that journey. But as you say, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things you need to take care of. And keeping a lot of things in your head can be challenging. I think if I were to give any advice on that, it won't be too much technically specific, but I think things that do help me are daily to-do list, knowing what to do, want to focus on when and how, and specifically when. But also minimizing any kind of unproductive sideshow stuff like meetings that you don't have to be on, learning how to delegate. I mean, for techies, for non-techies, business leaders, this can be normal stuff. But in the technology world, that's always a bit of a challenge for me, has been as well, as coming from some engineering background. I would always like to put my hands on the keyboard to do something. You have to stop yourself and see what's your most valuable use of your time. But at the same time, trying not to lose that kind of hands-on touch, which I'm trying to keep and kind of lead by example, really. Not be the one that kind of delegates work that you can't really do.
Yeah, it's always been one of the mantras of don't ask someone else to do something that you wouldn't do yourself, no matter what it is. And I think by having, like, say, the to-do lists, and, I know we've spoken about making sure meetings are actually 45 minutes in the calendar, so you've always got that time to reflect and do any actions from the meeting, so that you're not then cutting into and then constantly in a cycle of 8 1-hour meetings a day. Then you've got a whole list of actions you've got to follow up on, but you've got another day of meetings, and suddenly you've got a to-do list which is unmanageable. And like I say, when you've got a role which is diverse and as complex as a CTO's role, being able to put in small things that make a difference really do help day-to-day management, which then helps the day-to-day company. So hopefully you might have inspired a few people. Whether they've been put off by how complex the role is, I'm not sure. But if anyone wants to get in touch with you around whether it's your journey or how they can get involved with Pragmatic CTO, how would they get in touch with you?
So I do try to share my experiences and do a bit of a writing on any topics and challenges that I do encounter in my day-to-day job. I do that on www.pragmaticcto.com. So I would suggest everyone to go there. There's a reasonably large library of content that you can read to if there's something that matches your interest or challenges. And on the back of that, and the interest we got for this concept from both technology community, but also from a lot of founders and investors who are looking to beef up their tech leadership team, we are running our first Pragmatic CTO event.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes, so that's happening in March. So if you do search in Google Pragmatic CTO at Eventbrite, you'll find the registration page. It's completely free. There'll be 4 speakers on the day. Details will be there, and hopefully you'll have a good, fun evening out, followed with a couple of beers and pizza as well.
So we've got an event in March. We've got the Pragmatic CTO website. There's a Slack channel as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is a Slack channel. We are, as we said at the beginning, trying to build a community. So we have a Pragmatic Slack channel at pragmaticCTO.slack.com, free to join. And we also have our email address, pragmaticCTO@thestartupfactory.tech, for anyone to reach out. If you want to get involved, if you want to speak to one of our events, come and meet us, or have another form of gathering or community around Pragmatic CTO concepts and ideas, please do get in touch.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully it'll be, I think it already promised to be a good event with some of the speakers we've got lined up, and obviously, the events we've run so far have been relatively successful. So, and hopefully we'll have encouraged a few people to actually think about maybe taking that journey from being a senior engineer through to being a CTO and dealing with all the wonderful stuff you get to deal with.
Definitely, we should definitely try to make Manchester and the north of England the next Silicon Valley. And thank you, James, for inviting me and giving me this platform to talk about this.
No, you're always welcome. If anything, you need to come on more often. So, well, no, thank you very much for your time, Aleksa, and thank you everyone for listening.
I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@startupfactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.